We're the call from near and far, a voice like silk, a guiding star, tales untold in harmony. Join the circle, feel the frequency, the scarlet frequency, strong and free. That's we.
All right. So while everyone is filling in, we will just see how everybody is doing. So I'm going to share a little bit of news. Right before we get ready to start this space, my son sends me a message saying, "Hey, I'm going to come over and bring my girlfriend for you to meet." And I'm like, "Oh, that timing is horrendous." So yeah, but it's handled. But I was like, because I try and play it really cool and not be in his business like that, so that it doesn't change the fact that he doesn't share with me. But he was like, "Oh yeah, I was gonna bring her over," and I'm like, "No." So I finally lay some eyes on her. But all right, well, now that we've got you here, we're starting to fill up a little bit. Nat, thank you so much for taking. Nat is perpetually busy, so I'm very happy that she's co-hosting with me today. Nat, did you get that co-host invite? Oh, there we go. Finally went through.
Little button.
Hey, Nat.
I like pushing your button. Hello, dear. It's nice to hear your voice.
Is your mic on your head?
Is my mic on my head?
You just
Oh,
sound really far away.
is this better?
Much
Yes.
better.
There we go.
Much better. Oh, I'm so excited. I see the lovely Serena has come to listen with us. That is wonderful. Okay, so why don't we get started? If you're new, this is the Red Tent Storyteller. We do this every 2 weeks. It is the Red Tent trying to continue to promote, empower, and show our support to women and their creative spirit, whether their art form comes in the form of a documentary, a book, or computers, whatever your love is, whatever your art is what we want to empower you to. And today we are very lucky to have the wonderful Vaishnavi Sundar join us. If you are not familiar, which I find hard to believe, with Vaishnavi, she runs Lime Soda Studios, which has put out a tremendous amount of very important documentaries that focus on women and children. Behind the Looking Glass was the first ever documentary about wives and children of men who identify as who claim to be women, and the toll this takes. And before we get going, I first heard about Vaishnavi through my lovely friend Emmy, and we had been talking about trans widows for quite some time, but no one was talking about the effect that these decisions these men make has on the family unit, on their children, and in a way inviting their families into their fetish without their family's consent. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a bunch. But we're going to get to know the beautiful Vaishnavi, behind the woman behind the camera. And I'm very excited. So Vaishnavi, if you want to go ahead, if you want to just introduce yourself and talk and just give a little biography of yourself, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty.
Ooh, so this is finally happening. So I've been feverishly excited, as I said, about being on the X space with you. I have absolutely nothing but admiration for you, for Nat, for Emmy and Carol. And I've said this to you when we were speaking earlier, Pija, but the X space that we had, the three of you and me, was one of the most intimate conversations that I've had, and it kind of was long, but it was quite an overwhelming, in a sort of a good way, experience that I've had in a long time. So I'm really grateful that I'm able to do this with you again today. Biography would be a bit much, but I'm just driven by humor and rage, you could say, and filmmaking just happened to be one of those things that I ended up being good at. I didn't formally train to be a filmmaker. I didn't know how to, you know, I didn't know the first thing about films, but I have watched a lot of films and I have done theater for more than a decade, and I have been in film sets, and I have always been quite observant of my surroundings about how people do things, and I kind of absorb a lot. So the first ever film that I made was more than a decade ago, and I just went ahead and made it. That's how my film career began. I went ahead and made a film. That's pretty much all of it. I didn't have I couldn't afford a fancy film school degree, but what I could afford to do was to, without worrying about failing or worrying about making a crappy film, I went ahead and made something that I can call my own anyway. So that's when it all started, sometime around 2011, sometime, I can't remember exactly. That one was a fiction film, a short semi-autobiographical story about this little girl who is very interested in sports, not at all interested in education, and just wants to play and compete and do athletics and things like that. And she's always had trouble with having long hair. So she would go to this barber next door. This barber is not in my semi-urban town. These barber shops are a thing, it's where a lot of political discussions happen. A lot of men come get their beards trimmed and hair cut and things like that. But I would be like this little girl at a barber shop near my grandma's house, and I would go there, and I would always have like this special treatment, like a special little bench that would be laid for me because I would be too tiny. So I'd have a chair, and on top of that there'd be a bench, and I would sit on top of the bench and get my hair cut. So the first ever film was basically about the time when she realized that she no longer wants to be vulnerable like that anymore. So it's sort of a coming of age moment for her. He was never, hurtful to her, or was not sexually exploitative in any way, exploitative in any kind in any way. But she just decided that this is it. That's like a friendship that was great until it lasted. Now I move on. So that was the first ever film I made with my own little bit of an experience writing a script out of my own personal experience. It's just unfortunate that Kumaresan the barber had passed away by the time I'd made the film. It would have been really cool to go and show it to him, but yeah, certain things you just can't do anything about. But that's when it started, and it's funny because it's been a while now, and I have been making films, all kinds of films, fiction, documentary, music video, animation. It's probably the first ever vocation that I have stuck to for so long. Because right before that, I've had my corporate career. I finished my master's in business administration, and I jumped into the corporate world and hated it. I hated it. Hate can't properly explain my disdain towards the corporate world. But, you know, I had to follow the rat race, join a company, get a job, and follow the whole. That's what's expected of you in an Indian family. So that's what I did. But when I started making films, I never looked back. And today I'm so many years later chatting with all you wonderful women on Twitter about about how it all started.
Well, let's go back a little bit to before 2011. I think that there's a lot of women now who are reaching their 40s and are discovering this, that they can allow themselves to pursue a dream, to pursue a creative dream or something they love. And it's because we have each other to support each other. That because before it was, oh, if you're over 40, we're just going to put you out to pasture, right? Kind of thing. And I know you aren't in that, but I just wanted to bring that point in. So let's go back a little bit more, before 2011. Can you just give us a little peek inside what it was like for you growing up in India as a female?
Oh, wow. We're not going to be able to compile
Well,
all of that in this thing.
compartmentalize, yeah, yeah. But just in general, like, do you feel
Yes.
that just so that people might have an overview, not you specifically,
Yes,
but an overview for women in India.
yes, of course. So, I was born in an extremely patriarchal home. I was born in a family that had very definitive sex role stereotypes that everyone had to adhere to. The men were worshipped, the women were constantly, at the beck and call of a man, be it a father, or a husband, or a brother, or an uncle, or somebody, but the women were just always just waiting to be of service, that sort of a thing. And I have always found myself to never ever liking any of that. I never liked it for myself, and I never really liked other women doing it. But then it was a very deeply ingrained position that from a very young age it was implied that this is how it's going to be for you as well. And I used to, growing up, I used to have like this. For the longest time, it was a scar, and it probably is still a scar. I just tend to not think about it too much. But in my home, my mother had to work because my father couldn't give a damn about his female child. However, he made sure that he educated his male child. So if my mother hadn't gone to a job, I wouldn't have been able to receive any education, and rest of all of that comes with education. It would have been really hard for me. So everything that I am today is all thanks to my mom. Back then it was quite a difficult thing because my father was an alcoholic, wife beating, horrible man. And my brother and I, my older brother, he's 3 years older than me, we used to spend a lot of time at my grandma's place. And my grandma's place was like this very busy, buzzing kind of a house with uncles and cousins and things like that during summer holidays, especially. But there's this habit that we used to have at home where we all sit at home and eat on the floor. Like we sit on the floor and we eat. It's a Indian thing. You probably would have seen it in movies and stuff. But we had this thing where men would eat first and women would serve, and children too would have to wait. Male children, however, ate with other male men, right? Like older men. But female children too had to wait. So there was this thing where after the men finished eating, you had to clear the place up a little bit, like sprinkle some water because there'd be some food particles here and there and things like that. My grandma's house used to have this like ironclad rule about how you need to clean it. And it always used to be me who would be forced to do that. And for the longest time, I would curse myself so much that I was a female, and I that's why I was having to do this. And I wished I would be dead, or I wished I was a boy. I wished about all sorts of things at the time when they were asking me to clean it a certain way. So you had to use the palm of your hand and clean the surface of the floor, and if there are any food particles on there, you have to clean it first with your hand and then go wash your hand. And there'll be a rag cloth. You use the rag cloth to come and wipe the wetness on the floor. So you had to do this, and all the women would stand around and observe whether you're doing a good job. And they would tell you, look, there's a little bit of a food morsel over there, go clean it up over there, and that sort of a thing. Now, as a child, you're doing this and you see your brothers and your cousins and everything, they've already finished eating, not really caring about the food more pieces that they have left behind, and they're already gone to play. And then here I am trying to clean this, hating everybody. And that used to be such a scarring moment for me, but I had to do it. And when I was older and I refused to do it, I used to get a lot of the rule breaker kind of a tag that I would get. Oh, she is like this disobedient, horrible woman, girl who wouldn't listen to elders. She's so disrespectful. She wouldn't do house chores. What is she gonna do when she's gonna grow up? How's she gonna survive all of this world, being a female in this world, and that sort of a thing. And my grandfather, my mother's father, he used to cut newspaper clippings out of the daily news paper that we would get. It would be particularly about male violence against women and rapes and things like that. And at that time, he thought that he was doing a good thing by explaining to me the dangers of this world by showing me all those clips, right? I would think that he's sort of wanting me to say that, this is the kind of world we live in. But instead of telling me that it's okay, I'm there for you, or that you don't have to be scared, you have to be brave, he said, if you don't behave or if you don't go back home within a stipulated time, this is the same fate you would have as well. So basically, he was saying that if you don't go back home soon enough, and if it's dark, and men would rape you, just like uh, you know this poor woman's fate in the newspaper. And he would show me those clippings to say that this is the world we live in, and if something were to happen to you, it would be your own doing because you didn't go back home soon enough from my grandma's house to my house. I didn't really have like a social life, and I was kind of a misfit even in the school gang. I never really had friends. I would mostly be a lonely child. Girls would have problem being friends with me because I don't know, I don't know, it's just how girls are, right? When you're growing up, girls can be pretty vicious, would get bullied and things like that. And boys, I never really cared much. A couple of friends I would speak with, but then you really can't really hang out with them all the time during school. So it was overall quite a dark childhood. And I used to think about it a lot even as an adult, that I was born and I was an adult like immediately. There was no time for me to be a child. There was no time for me to make mistakes, be innocent, ask questions. There was no time for any of that. I was born, I was an adult. I was given the due warning that if something were to happen to me, it would be my fault. And that's the kind of um, rule that I grew up with. If something were to happen to me, I must have done something to deserve it or something like that. And that ends up being like the benchmark for all the decisions and all the thought processes that you end up having growing up as a youngster, young woman, and then an adult. You just constantly keep thinking, must be something I did, must be something I did. But that's how it was. And the whole picture, the image of me cleaning the whole thing after the men finish eating is something that's just so traumatizing to even describe it right now. But that was like the what I don't know, it was one of those moments that really defined how the rest of my life was going to be. So yeah, that's the long and short of it.
Well, I think a lot of, like, when you were talking about this was your grandmother's rule and it had to be cleaned, it's something I think about all the time now, especially like keeping up with Afghanistan. And um, you know when people go, oh well, that women are okay with it, and I'm wondering, it's like, well, it's generational, right? So by the time you were born, this had been going on for so long that it was just assumed that, as a female, this is what you had to do, and there was no pushback. The women were telling you to do it just as much as the men, and it's like, and that's because that's that cycle, right? And I'm really, when you said you were born and then you were an adult, that's exactly, like, you hit the nail on the head with that. When anything in your childhood becomes your daily life becomes the reality of adults and you're a child, there's no you it doesn't come back to you. You don't get a second chance at it. So it does affect you for your life. It's like the stone in the still lake. The rings go on and on and on. And you and I talked a little bit yesterday about, the awkwardness and just having, a few friends. And do you feel that your childhood, uh every part of it, influenced your ability to listen to your instinct at this point? I kind of feel like it's given us, uh I think when you have gone through any kind of, we're already typically more wary, but because we don't do well in crowds or loud noise or things like that, we're more ready to skedaddle if we need to, out of a situation. And so I'm just wondering, like, do you feel this has honed your ability? That in any way played a role in honing your ability to know if something's right? Like, if your gut instinct, does it do you listen to it on pretty much all the time now?
Yeah, I'm my best friend, really. I listen to myself a lot. I go inward a lot. It helps me, it heals me. I listen to my body, I listen to my mind. I take care of it like a temple. I will never do anything to cause any harm to it, mentally, physically, or any other way possibly. I treat my body and my mind as the most precious thing right now because that's all you've got in the end, right? What you're not gonna you're going to leave this world with just that. So I listen to myself a lot. And I think what you said is partially true. Sometimes I wonder if it is not even by choice sometimes, because if you're alone, you're alone. You just have your own thoughts to listen to or process, right? So that becomes like an innate thing, a quality to just be quiet and observe. I have been quiet and I have observed a lot. I'm a very quiet child. I was a very introverted child, not because I didn't want to have friends or didn't want to be like other children. It just how it ended up being, you know. I um I was just not lucky enough to have like those kind of girlfriend gang, you know, that some of my other friends have had. They talk about it, about their school life. It's so much love and joy. And I'm thinking, goodness gracious, I'm fucking glad the school life is over. I don't want to ever go back to that time. Like, even if somebody were to pay me like shitloads of money and say, you know, go back, relive your school days, and I'd be like, no, keep your money. I'm out of here. But that's how it is when you're on your own a lot. You think, you introspect, and you observe. I suppose it has helped me live my life however I am living my life right now, you know, so that inevitably also sort of trickles down to the way I make films, perhaps, or even just make friendships, speak with women, how I interact with others, how I see the world. Everything that has happened to me as a child has a bearing to how I am today. And I think, although it's filled with pain and sorrow and uh, grief and so much, I can't even describe it, but it still also is something of a tutor, of a little wise friend, you know, to have your own company and to listen to yourself, make your own stupid mistakes and tell yourself that it's okay, you can try again sometime, you know, that sort of a thing. You basically on your own, and you laugh at your own jokes a lot. That's something that happens. I laugh at my own jokes. I think I'm the most hilarious person to myself a lot. I make the most funniest jokes and it helps me tide through some harsh times or moments, you know, especially when making films or listening to stories of abuse and violence. Sometimes some dark humor inside me that wouldn't have come if I hadn't been this lonely kid growing up, right? So all of those things, all of everything has come together to make this version of me today. And I have no regrets. I would have liked to do a few things differently. Of course, who wouldn't, right? But there's no point in crying over spilled milk, I suppose. So I'm very happy where I am. I now spend all my time thinking about how to make my life better, how to take care of my body better, how to be happy, how to engage with the things I love. I love animals. I pretty much spend my waking life thinking about animals. I adore them. I do anything for them. I die for them. So I try and do as much as I can for them. And in the meantime, I enjoy also doing film stuff. So I basically do happy things right now, even though the subject matter is not necessarily happy. I think it still needs to be done. I have this skill and I'm on this side of the hill very proudly. So I think, you know, I want to put my skill to good use, and that's what I hope I'll do for another decade or more.
Well, I think that you're hilarious too. So there you go. Me and your inner voice. Um, so let's go back a little bit to the creativity thing where where you've internalized and you were alone and stuff. Do you feel that fueled your imagination when you were younger? Do you? Because I know for me, my imagination, I read when I was a kid, not now, my eyes are terrible now. I read all the time. I lived in books because I didn't know how to be around other people. Do you think that being more solitary when you were younger just kind of, I think a lot of the creativity gets bottled up, and then when you finally allow yourself in a way to love and respect yourself, then that cork pops on the bottle or whatever. That's how it kind of was for me in a way, not all at once. But for you, do you think that your imagination and your love of creativity kind of came from that solitary childhood?
Yeah, it did. It definitely did. I should just say, Pija, while we are speaking about your art and your artistic experience, I just love whatever you have done. And I love the previous X space where we talked about all of your artwork. It was phenomenal. So thank you really for doing that. And regarding me and my imagination, I've had like this this fantastical outlook for mundane things. I would imagine like weird ass things like a big ocean in the middle of a residential street, or some shopkeeper who's got like a gigantic head who's selling like lemons. And I would always have like this over excited imagination, and I would look at the world with those things, and I would always laugh to myself, wouldn't it be funny if this is how it is. My all-time favorite memory is when when I was a child, I would just so hope that if the whole world was just basically a mattress, so basically you won't fall down and get hurt. You could run, you could fall down, you could like do, I don't know, I don't know, basically roll over, and you can hit against anything. You would simply not get hurt at all. So that used to be like my all-time childhood fantasy of, wouldn't it be awesome if the entire world is just a mattress or something like that? So that's how basically my imagination ran. And the only person I ever said this to was my brother, and he would just look at me with like this look of, oh God, what is this creature even? But that's how far I went with regards to sharing it. But I have always had this. I still do actually think about it, and I when I walk, and if there's there is like a path that is particularly challenging to walk or to cycle, I would always think the child me was so wise. Imagine if the whole place was a mattress, we wouldn't have had this problem at all. That sort of a stupid internal conversation with myself all the time. But yeah, it really did shape the way I was looking at things. It made it easier for me, or less solitary for me, when I would run these imaginary things inside my head, and just I don't know, make it fun for myself. And because mom used to work and have like these longish shifts and things like that, I had no choice but to be on my own a lot. So I never really was very keen on like classroom based education, or some sort of a disciplined setup. I had always enjoyed doing cultural stuff, dancing and singing and dramas and painting, and anything that would let me come out of something so disciplined like that, because that's basically what it reminded me of my upbringing itself, right? This whole strict classroom sort of a setting where you're running a rat race. You have to get so much marks, and that you have to get good grades, and this and that. You have to be better at science and math and so on. There's just so much pressure inside the classroom, and I would daydream in the classroom. I would get called by teachers a lot, and I would be asked to leave the classroom, kneel down, and that sort of a thing. In Indian schools, punishments, which is super normal. No teacher spared the what do you call that, wooden scale. We would all get like beat up a lot in schools, and I would be like the first recipient of it. The teacher would just be so bored, she'd just call me. I wouldn't even have been up to any mischief, but she'd just call me by mistake, or so much out of habit, because I would always be up to some mischief, and then she'd be like, "Oh, it was not you. What a surprise!" And then it would be somebody else, and then she would punish her. So I have been so used to being this nonconformist kid for my entire life. So that's exactly how I would amuse myself. This sort of a weird, fantastical look at wouldn't it be cool if the world was like this, sort of a thought trajectory all the time.
I'm loving the idea of the mattresses. I mean, I think this is something you need to roll with. As someone who runs into things on a regular basis, I'm going to need you to write that and then make it so. Um, let's talk about, okay, so your first film was fictional, the barbershop film. What
Yes, that
what
was the fictional one.
emotions, like, so you decide to make a film. What was this like to have, what conversation did you have with yourself when you're like, okay, am I gonna do this? I'm gonna make this movie and I'm talking about wanting my hair short and it's in a, I mean, how were you feeling at the time? Because you took the step. Ultimately you took the leap and you made the film and then everything's come from there. Take us back to that time when you were making that decision to go full in with making a film.
Oh, I was riddled with imposter syndrome, constantly doubting myself, constantly wondering whether I'm doing the right thing or whether it would all be a big, huge failure. What am I even doing? Wasting my time, getting an MBA and then making films. And my forefathers would snigger at me, that sort of a conversation I would have internally. But it was very scary to write a script. So to write a script, I had to read a lot of scripts, understand the jargon, the lingo, what a certain thing meant, why you needed a cut in a certain place, why it had to be a certain dimension of a shot, why can't it be a close-up, why did it have to be a wide shot. Those were all things that were suddenly decisions that I had to make, and it was just way too overwhelming for me. So at that time, I remember personal life was also in a bit of a crisis at the time. So it was quite a dark period. But then this attempt at making this first film became like my way of coming away from all of that. So I was thinking, well, it is challenging, but it is not as challenging as how your life is right now. At least this is a good challenge. It's a happy challenge. You like doing it. You can figure this out. I would have conversations with myself, encourage myself to not look at it as a setback, but to see how you can figure it out. I had a few friends who went to film school. I would constantly check in with them to see if this is the right thing to do. How do I make a certain, for example, in fiction film, you have to go on recce to look for a location to shoot and things like that. You need to ask permission. And if it's a public space, you need all sorts of permission and what have you. So I had to, on my own, figure all of that out. And for an introvert, it was so hard. I hate people. I hate talking to people, men especially, and the bureaucratic older men who just look down upon you. I hate them with passion, but I had to do all of that because I was constantly thinking. As a child, I did a lot of sports, and my the way I prepared myself for any activity, especially a relay or a 100-meter dash, was to picture myself at the starting line and imagine myself running and getting to the finish line. Doesn't matter if I'm finishing last or finishing first. I would just imagine myself just running alone on the track and go all the way, end the race and finish it. There used to be like such a huge boost, huge encouragement for me mentally, and it would I would psych myself up that way. So during the process of making this film as well, I was constantly imagining myself the joy, the exuberance I would get when I know I have finished the race. I kept chasing that high. I kept telling myself, just think about how you'd feel once you finish. You just think about how amazing you'd feel. You'd be so proud of yourself. You'd be so proud of yourself, and you'd want to hug that younger self who thought you couldn't do all of these things, and so on and so forth. So it was all a huge big mess. I would sit and cry a lot. I would think, I'm just not good enough. How am I going to do this? And there was also an issue of paying people and paying the cinematographer, paying the editor, paying the artist, and things like that. So many things to think about, right? So I took that as a challenge and I went about it one by one. And in a way, I figured a rhythm for myself. So there would come a challenge and I would break it down and I would address it one by one. Now I realize that that's just how a rational person would do it anyway. But at that time, because it seemed overwhelming, me having found this solution seemed like, worthy of some book or a memoir or something, because I thought, wow, I figured this shit out. But really, it was just a rational person breaking down situations and, looking at it from a clear, sort of a not sort of an overwhelmed, anxious approach, but just with a clear mind. Okay, this is the situation. How do we tackle it? Blah blah blah. And I called and a few friends who tried to guide me, but in the end it was me who had to go stand in front of an official, getting permission and all of that. And there was also the challenge of shooting inside a barber shop. We eventually found a barber shop that allowed us to shoot, and there are mirrors all over the barber shop, right? There was a challenge of filming it without being seen with the camera. So there was a lot of challenge with that as well. So we had to do a lot of planning around it. So we had to stand in a way that we would hide ourselves in front of the character, so that at the reflection you would see the character but not us. So there was a lot of planning that went behind it. And also we were doing live sound recording. We were not doing ADR, additional dubbing. I don't like the quality of dubbing. I like it sync sound. I like to record on set. So when I called for action, we would all be on the floor lying down because we can't be seen on the mirror. And the sound guy would often end up having his bloody boom mic on the frame, and we had to do many retakes because of that. So there was just unbelievable amount of funny little learning experiences along the way. Now, if I have to go and do Pawa, my first film, I would do it like so differently, obviously. But that experience, I remember we finished the shooting and we were just, collected the footage and everything. We were just at a tea stall nearby. All of us were having some tea. And I remember feeling I was sweating a lot. And I remember thinking, God, I'm never removing this t-shirt ever again, because this is like the fruit of my labor and it's my sweat and I'm never going to take it off and things like that. Of course, I stank. I had to take it off. But then I was just thinking that, wow, what an achievement. I still had a lot of post production to do. There was music, there was sound, there was editing, there was all kinds of things. But at that moment, I was just like, Vaish, you've done it. You've done it. You're the queen. You're on top of the world or whatever. And then, I had the tea and I had to go back home and start with the post production almost immediately. But it was quite an experience. I thought there were just blocks over stumbling blocks, and it was quite an experience to. It was like playing a video game. You have something in front of you, you have to dodge it, you have to find the most strategic way of doing it, and that's pretty much what I did in the process of making the first film. And the second film, it became a little easier. I still made a lot of mistakes, and I'm very proud to have made a lot of mistakes. I want to keep making mistakes so that I can learn from it. But the second film got easier and the third film got easier. So it was just, I have never looked back again. I have never looked back about the time before I was making films. This is it for me. This is what I want to do.
I feel the same way. It's pre Pija, I call it. I know you said that it was difficult and you would do things different, but the one thing I heard through everything you were saying is I could hear the love in your voice at thinking about this a film you made, right? And the t-shirt, like you could hear how much you loved brand new to filming Vaishnavi, that you can look back on her and respect and admire and love her and realize what was accomplished, and I mean it was just really obvious. Let me ask you a question though. How was it for you, because you were filming in a barber shop? This is mostly men, I'm assuming, in there. Was everyone pretty accommodating, or was that one of the reasons it took you a while to find a place to shoot?
Well, a few things that we had to keep in mind about finding a place to film. One was just logistically, I had to find a place that was a little bit away from main roads traffic because we were doing sync sound. And if I were to record the dialogues live, then I had to make sure there is no honking and everything. India is just infamous for honking. You just people honk at potholes because they just can, people honk at trees because how dare the tree is standing at the corner of the road. So people just honk, right? That's like an Indian thing. You ask an Indian man to not honk, he would forgo his entire day's salary and wonder why you have made him do such a terrible thing of, depriving him of honking in the middle of the road when the road is pretty much empty. But anyways, I had to make sure that the road was not so close to the barber shop. And of course, the place is always filled with men. And when we were filming as well, there would be all this crowd outside. So I had to get a bunch of my male friends who would come and help me out with crowd control a little bit, because obviously if I go there and ask them to leave, they would obviously not listen, and I was just not having it in me to deal with the men anyway. So it was quite a challenge. But when we took the location for filming, the people were 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 happy to let us use the space, and they were just not in the room at all. They were close by, their house was close by, so we were on our own, and if we needed them, we could just call them and ask them for stuff and things like that. There was also this thing about I was trying to get the look of how it would be uh, like the one that I went to in the early 1980s, right? Not early 1980s. I was born 1986. I meant early 1990s. I wanted it to look like those old barber shops, not like this beauty salon stuff that you get these days. Very young kids go to these beauty salons these days. So the two girls that I you know cast for the film, they were a little surprised because they looked at this barber shop like they went on some time warp or something. They looked at it like, whoa, what is this place even? And I used to say that this is the kind of place that I used to get my haircut. Where do you get your haircut? Oh, we go to this so and so salon. And I was like, okay. And in the middle of filming, we had to take them away, cut their hair at one of those salons, because obviously the person who was acting as the barber was not actually the barber. So in the film, there is this before and after for both the girls. One was of a younger age. The same character was a bit older in the film as well. So we had to make sure that she comes in with more hair. And in the process of them setting up the shots, I had to quickly take my scooty and go get the girl's haircut done in a different place and then come rushing back and things like that. But all through the whole scheme of things, there were just men, 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 men. Had to deal with men all the time. But thankfully, there were a bunch of my friends who were there to, well, friends as in, they were there because filming was happening, not because I was making the film. They were just interested in being part of a film project rather than who was making the film. So I should be clear. I'm being generous with the word friends over there. But I'm anyway grateful that they were there and I could, in the end, pull this uh, film together. And I remember the final render that you have to do, and you have the film, the file itself. It felt something like a mm, I'm not belittling or I'm not trivializing giving birth to an actual baby, but it did really feel like I have birthed it, and it really did feel traumatic. It's like I've gone through labor for like how many ever months it was that the film was in pre-production, production, and then post-production. It felt like I was in the labor, giving birth about to give birth to this child, and then when it came out, it was there, right? It was there for posterity. It was going to be there. I have now done it. The film is out, and then we had the screening and everything. It's there now. Like that basically defined it for me. And
I
then
really want to see this film now. You understand that, right? I really want to see this film. If you ever feel like it, we could do a viewing party, and I think that a lot of people would love, a lot of women would love to see it. Okay, so let's fast forward because we wanted to get to some more of your works here as well. But I really want to see this movie. I'm just putting it out there. That was fiction.
Yes.
When did you decide to switch to doing documentaries?
Yeah, I think it was about 4 or 5 films down. I wanted to take up the subject of workplace sexual harassment that happens in India. And I just wanted to see if it was possible to do a film on this subject because I had to limit it to workplace because otherwise sexual harassment in India is a film that I will keep making until the day I die, right? So it's not, so I limited myself to workplace and was also around the time when there was some legal changes that were happening, some new laws were coming up where companies were forced to look into this matter a bit more seriously. And I wanted to see it from a journalistic slash filmmaker point of view to see how really corporates are taking this in stride and whatever happens to the unorganized sectors, which is not defined by like the HR department and things like that, like women who sell flowers outside temple, women who work as construction laborers, women who work as sanitation workers, house help, and women that don't necessarily have a structure with which they could seek redressal should there be some sort of a problem that they're facing at their workplace. For many, it might even be somebody's home, so it makes things even harder. So I just wanted to see if it was possible for me to make a film on this subject. And that film took me about 2 years to make. I traveled as much as money I could afford. I was fundraising for that as well, crowdfunding for that as well. So I traveled wherever possible, stayed in somebody's couch and things like that, filmed a lot of the videos myself. And the women were thankfully very forthcoming because, as you can imagine, with Behind the Looking Glass as well, I have said in multiple places, it was like women were just waiting to be asked about this experience. Mostly with abuse and violence, that's often the case. Women are just happy that you're listening to their story, their abuse story, and telling them that you believe them. That's mostly what they want out of a film, really. So I traveled and I spoke with a lot of women from across the board. This is the only film, it still is India's only film which talks in detail about workplace sexual harassment in a way that it doesn't limit this workplace as a concept to just air-conditioned rooms where a female CEO is being harassed, which also is commonplace. But we are also expanding this idea of what a workplace is. I'm a filmmaker. If I'm making pawa in the middle of the road outside a barber shop and some guy is harassing me, that's workplace sexual harassment for me. How do I seek redressal? I go to the police, they laugh at me and they wouldn't take me seriously at all. They wouldn't take me seriously even in the most uh, very obviously dangerous situation. So they're never going to take me seriously in here. So then I thought how difficult it would be for women who are in the unorganized sector. I remember one time I was returning from somewhere in an auto rickshaw and it was pouring down and there are these the street vendors, right? They sell fruits and flowers and things like that. The auto rickshaw was just at a traffic signal, so we weren't moving. Traffic was horrible, and there was this woman. I will never forget this incident. It's just another deep scar in my heart. So this woman, it started raining, properly raining, like thick rain, and this woman who was actually a seller ran to a corner and she just stood there. And I'm assuming she was relieving herself and she was happy that it was raining because otherwise her clothes might, I mean, right now her clothes would all be wet, so it doesn't really matter. So she didn't really. There were no public toilets that she could use. Even if there are actual physical toilets, it's not in usable condition at all. That's another film waiting to be made by somebody, not me. But there are no public toilets. So these women are working women and it is her workplace. And every once in a while, there'll be men who'd come, they would flash at you and they would go. You won't have time to go catch hold of that man and take him to the police station. Nobody has that kind of a time in a country like mine when, sexual harassment is just so rife. Men don't care to treat women in unorganized sectors with dignity. They just think of them as, just they're just there. They exist for the service of patriarchy. They don't deserve dignity, they don't deserve respect, they don't deserve equality. And they definitely do deserve sexual harassment, is what the men think. So that was my first ever documentary making experience. And I called the film But What Was She Wearing? Because often that used to be the question, right? In Indian newspapers, that's what you get to hear. Oh, so was it because she was wearing modern, fashionable clothes, sleeveless clothes? Is that why she got raped? Well, no, because there is also a woman who's wearing complete burqa from head to toe, and even she gets raped in a country like mine. So this isn't exactly about clothes, is it? But then I deliberately called the film, But What Was She Wearing, to make a point. And during every screening, there would always be this one asshole piece of shit man who would say, oh, but what about men who get sexually harassed at workplace? And I would just say, please go make a film about it.
Oh my gosh. So male chauvinist pig is an international language, basically.
It really is. And when they do ask me that question, and these days I almost kind of hope that some idiot would get up and, you'd either get that or you'd get someone who just wants to talk and would say like it's more of a comment than a question kind of a situation. And he would just ramble on and on and on. And I wouldn't say anything, but the crowd would just, shift in their seats and turn around, look at him, gesture him to sit down. He just can't read the room. But I just let these men do the job for me. After he finishes his monologue, I say that this is exactly why we need spaces like this. We need films like these. We need, this man basically just proved my point, is what I would say. You can never escape that. You would never escape these men. Sometimes they come simply because they want to harass you, and that's what they do. Earlier, I used to get really angry and things like that, but these days I just laugh. I just laugh at these idiots because I think of them and I I don't give them enough value as a human being for me to even consider them worthy of my scorn. I just think of them as, I don't know, worthless. So they don't deserve even my anger. So I just laugh at these men these days. I think that's been my approach to men most of the time. Of course, I get angry. I will never stop being angry. That's basically my fuel. But I'm just saying, like, there are these men who would never um, leave you be.
Speaking of the difference between the sexes, do you have a community of female filmmakers that are know the difference between men and women? Do you have is that exist in India at all, like a creative community, or is it just impossible?
Well, thankfully for me, I have found a few turfy filmmakers and animators whose work you have also seen in Behind the Looking Glass and Dysphoric and things like that. But their time is far too precious and limited because they all have a corporate job and they're not fighting this ideology publicly like I do. So they have a lot to think about in terms of coming on board in a project with my name on it. So they have to be careful about that. But if a few years ago, almost about a decade ago, I created a community for female filmmakers, and I called it Women Making Films. Basically, it's like this platform that you can put your work out, and other people can see it. And if they like your work, they can contact you and they can hire you. And even before COVID, I used to be expert in working with women from around the world for, but what was she wearing? It happened before COVID. I had like a German editor, I had an American intern, I had a Swiss music composer, all women. I was quite adept at finding these women who I can bring together. Not because I didn't find women in India, but it just so happened, and I was not necessarily restricting myself. These were just women who were interested and came forward themselves, and I decided that, well, as long as they're female, I'm happy to collaborate with anybody. And if they're from elsewhere, it's even amazing because the concept that I'm trying to create is not limited to India, it's universal. Everybody is just as agitated about it um, um, as me. So I was really glad that I could bring them all together. So WMF was also a project like that. And apart from having women put their work together, right now it has members from over 20 countries, all through word of mouth, and they can select what their expertise is. If they're an editor, they can say they're an editor, and if they have a portfolio, they can give a link, and I will publish that. And I will also encourage women to work with each other from within the website, and if they collaborated with other members, then I promote that work, that film. And with WMF, I have screened female only film festivals. I have conducted female only film festivals all over the world by just sitting in my bedroom in my pajamas. I have basically done quite a lot of these screenings where my only criteria is it could be documentary, it could be animation, could be music video, could be anything, just as long as it's a female that has done it. The female that um as we know it now. But now things have changed. But back then, I was very clear that it was made by female, or it had at least a female character if it's a fiction film, or if it's female centered, that sort of a thing. I have had screenings hosted in the US, I've had it in Europe, I've had it in so many different places in India. I never even traveled to do this. I just found collaborators in different places, and they were happy to screen it for me, make an event out of it, and I just did it out of my bedroom. And I was quite pleased about women making films as a community. I will eventually kickstart um, and try and do more things with it. But unfortunately, the question that you asked, I'm coming back to that. A lot of the women that are on the website right now are obviously not seeing eye to eye with me. And a lot of them who I used to collaborate with before no longer want to associate themselves with me. They have blocked me. I find these things out painfully sometimes when I try to wish them on their birthday and I'm searching them on WhatsApp, and I realize that, oh, okay, blocked. It stings every time, but then it's just that moment after that, it's just funny. So none of them want to do anything creative with me, but they're there. Their work is still there. I have never taken it down. WMF also publishes a lot of amazing blog posts. It writes about it critiques a lot of these macho films that come out. It throws in a feminist perspective to it and things like that. I have done a lot of random things in a very short period of time, and I just end up like pausing it and then do another amazing thing, and then pause it and then do another amazing. But all of these things are quite within the umbrella of film and filmmaking and feminism and that sort of a thing. So I'm pretty pleased with all the different um, trajectories these things took off in the direction that it took off in. I'm really pleased with WMF. I'm really pleased with Lime Soda. I'm just happy that I'm having the skill, the commitment to put something out for other women to use.
I want to talk about lime soda, but real quick, I want everyone to know. I just want let's talk about the importance of the online community, of the women of X, the Turvan of X, because we were talking about this behind the scenes about some the women we're closest to we've never met. And I'm gonna share here. Vaishnavi asked me if Carol and Emmy and I had met since we were as far away from each other as possible, and I said no. But that we speak on the regular and stuff, and we got into this discussion about the importance of the online community, not only for getting the message out there and getting financing for female stuff thing projects, but also the support, the emotional support, and being able to find those people that you click with. As Carol always says, find your tribe. And that's enabled us to connect all over the world, right? The women I'm closest to are in different time zones I never even thought about ever, right? So, and then we learn about each other, and we get a peek inside. So just tell us what you feel about how you feel about the online turban community.
If not for the online Taiwan community, I would have been so miserable. That's the long and short of it. But then I would like to elaborate. When the whole cancellation thing happened, it happened right after the sexual harassment film that I made. It was supposed to be screening in New York, and then they went through my Twitter, and I had made some tweets about female sports or some female only sports or something like that. And then they decided that it was just too offensive and they don't want to host an event with screening my film or whatever. So when it started and the word got around, and I was trying to I was trying to tell my friends who I thought were my friends that something like this happened. Instead of supporting me, they all either went quiet or they were just angry that I would dare to speak against the trans community this way, or that they were feeling so ashamed that they ever had any association with me. And the best thing that they could do to themselves is to immediately cut all ties off me and things like that. Now, when that happened, obviously it hurts, right? It obviously it's not a pleasant feeling because, especially because you know you have done nothing wrong. And these are the same women who support you earlier when you have made female only stuff. Nothing has changed. I have continued to make only female centered films, but then I have now made my position clear that I'm not involving men who are wearing skirts and claiming to be female, not that kind of female. Only the actual real female is what I'm interested in. And that's exactly what I was interested in even before. But now suddenly I have become this horrible person. So all of them decided to just, back away from me, you know, just completely cut ties with me. I used to write for a lot of magazines and stuff about films and things like that. And if I made any film at all, there would be at least some mention somewhere in some magazine or some newspaper or something like that. All of those things basically just stopped overnight because I dared to speak against the gender ideology. And they wanted to do this as a punishment because they cut your livelihood off, and they think if you're worried about how to put food on your table, you're not going to be worried about men calling themselves women, right? That's what they try to do all the time. They cut your friends off, they cut your support system off, they cut your livelihood off. They tried doing that, but I doubled down because right after that is when I made Dysphoric. And through Dysphoric, what I got is something that I can't use words to describe, because I have since reassured myself, and I think I believe this so firmly, that cancellation was the biggest fucking amazing thing that has ever happened to me, because it brought this avalanche of love from women on social media, on X. When I posted the film, I was a nobody. I mean, I was known here in the small circle of filmmakers and things like that. I was a nobody. I was a nobody trying to understand this phenomenon. I tried to bring a little bit of India into the film, and it's still not heavily watched and things like that, but it is still a film that I made and I'm really proud of. And it brought with it these amazing women who I don't know. I suppose you make you're born in a family, and then you grow up and you make your own family. Some women that I have met online and I have gotten to know them later on, whether or not I've met them in person, I consider these women my actual sisters, my fucking family. I can't even imagine what it would be like to not have them. Even if I go away on Twitter, from Twitter or whatever, I just can't imagine not having all of you. It's it's not even potential prospective thing that I can visualize. It's just not happening. You're all stuck with me now. You don't have an option to leave me anywhere. That's just how it is going to be now.
Well, we're not going anywhere. If we all left X, then X would be 99% less cool. So let's talk about lime soda, your other baby. What brought about you deciding to create lime soda? And I know this story because you from speaking with you in the past. But can you explain about the name?
Yes. Yes. So the first film that we made, right, the barbershop one, I just made my film under my friend's production house. He just said, we just, it doesn't matter, production house is production house. It's okay, you can just use mine. And then I used his, and I didn't understand what it meant to have your own production house and things like that. And then I made the second film. The second film was slightly longish film than the first one, and I was trying to do it in a completely different language, in a different state. I was just giving myself this challenge, crowdfunded the whole thing for the first time, logged the entire experience and blogged about it so that other women can use it. I created a lot of different templates for short divisions and how to raise funds. I put them all out as resources constantly for anybody for free to download and use it if they wanted to. And then um, um, when we finished filming and we were editing and things like that, you had to come up with the titles and things like that. And I was just thinking, oh shoot, now we're not using his production company, are we? What do we need to get our own? What do we do? What do we do? So this entire day was spent deliberating what can we call our film company. So you know how it goes, right? You look at things and then you think, would this be a good name? So you look at things like computer films or lamp films, or I don't know, like tube light films or something. You just look at anything, chair films, table films. The entire day was just looking at things and wondering whether that would be a good enough name. And the whole day went away, and I was trying to get all creative, looking at Greek names to mean things, and new beginnings, and Spanish names, and French names, and what have you. I was just Googling stuff, and I felt like a weird ass dictionary, with just seeing words in front of my eyes. I just didn't feel convinced about any of the names that I was seeing online. And I was thinking I'll name something in Tamil, my own language. I still didn't find anything that was cool enough that would represent me, that was fun, that was also easy to remember, catchy, blah, blah, blah. So then it was time to have dinner already, because the entire day went away just wasting looking at objects and trying to visualize it as your film company, but amounted to nothing really. It was dinner time, and then we had ordered lime soda. So, as the tradition goes of looking at objects and saying whether it would be a good fit, I just looking at things and going lime soda films, and then I just paused for a bit because it did have a ring to it. I love lime soda films, lime soda films. I kept saying it a few times. We quickly ran to my computer and checked to see if the domain was available. Bought it without even thinking whether I'm going to keep the name or not. Bought it, and then kept saying lime soda films many, many time again. I was already thinking about a logo and everything, and it was just there. It was just that's it. I was deliberating about the name of the film production company all morning, and then I had to wait till dinner, and my order of lime soda arrived, and that's it, lime soda films. But thankfully, though, if I hadn't looked at objects and wondered whether that would be a good enough fit, I probably wouldn't have maintained the tradition when the lime soda arrived. So in a way, I'm happy that the exercise happened all morning. So when the lime soda arrived, I just went lime soda films. That's it. That it's easy, it's catchy, it's refreshing. People will remember it, and I also wanted to make sure that it was neutral. It didn't have a sex. It was just neutral. That's it. I deliberately didn't want it to have sex at the time when I created the movie. production company. If you'd asked me to name my company now, it would scream feminism. But at that time, not because I was any less of a feminist then, I just wanted something to be neutral. It should mean nothing. It should just be a thing. I was also trying to make a comment about all of these really deep philosophical names that people give for their companies, and here I am just taking a random object and turning that into my film company. I was just also making a comment about that. So that's how it all started. That dinner order changed everything, and my career as a filmmaker.
I just wanted to say you had me at I bought the domain and I didn't even know if I was gonna keep the name.
Domains everything, right, Nat? You have to have the domain.
You have to have the domain.
Wait, what has been the reaction? I know that Nad's computer nerd thing is she's just all happy about that. Her day is made. Um, what has been the react? Let's talk about behind the looking glass, because I know I really want to talk about when you're making a film that is got this amount of pain and an emotion in it. Um, how the loneliness around that, because you have to be removed in a way, right, as a documentarian. uh Not that you have to be unfeeling, but you still have to make the film. So can you talk to us a little bit about your process of that particular film?
Sure. Um, Behind the Looking Glass ended up being the most in terms of listening to abuse stories and violence and things like that. This was the most challenging film. With But What Was She Wearing in Dysphoric, though there were a lot of abusive circumstances that I had to navigate and find objectivity in the narrative of the documentary, this was the hardest because I had to listen to it over and over again. And this kind of abuse that we're dealing with, and the fact that this was the first ever film and it's 2025 when it came out, and nobody had thought about it until this all this time. So that became all the more traumatic, the fact that nobody knows about it, and therefore the responsibility of making sure you're doing a good job. You're all alone in the room. Where I'm speaking to you right now is the room that I sit and I edit. This is basically where I wake up, I sit in front of the computer, it's night, I go to bed. Like, that's how it was during the editing stages and the research and the interview stages and things like that. Now, when things got a bit more formalized, like the early stages, I was still doing a lot of research. So I was talking to a lot of women, not knowing yet at the time how many of them are going to be in the final film, not in the final cut, as in my decision to keep or leave them, but their decision to be part of my project, right? So there were a lot of women who contacted me wanting to just tell me their story. And we're talking about what I spoke with about 50 something women, right? And this is all really ghastly, abusive, violent nonsense that nobody would believe happened to this woman. And if you dare to speak out about this, everyone knows what the reaction is going to be for that woman. So when I put out an advert to say that I'm interested in speaking with wives and children, it was it was a bittersweet experience because I was so heartened that all these women placed their trust, their faith in they just knew that they could trust me and they could share their story and I would listen to them without judgment. That alone was victory for me. Like, honestly, that alone would suffice, that you considered me um, a good enough listener, that you entrusted your life's most traumatic story so openly, so generously. You gave me your time and your vulnerable moments you shared with me. I'm forever grateful to all these women who I spoke with. But once they share their story, um, they go on about the day. I'm sure a lot for a lot of women, having re narrated this entire experience, it must have been very, very hard. So it must have lingered on for a few days. And it is truly their life itself, right? This has happened to them. So they never really are free from their story. But the other side of it is me being this one person who is a recipient of 50 something stories of violence and abuse, right? And that's hard to keep and carry and live normally, wake up, make coffee, brush your teeth. I don't know, it's hard because like I said, I'm a very visual person. So when someone says something to me, unfortunately, my brain gives me visuals, and um and I see these women on Zoom, right? I know how they look, even though a lot of them are anonymous in the film. I know how they look because they were happy to do a video call with me. They trusted me with that. So that's amazing. They were happy to let me see them. Oh God, I still get nightmares. I'll be honest. I still get nightmares. Read one story, one news story somewhere, like say Redux, or somebody posts something about a man and how his wife is just standing coy next to him or something like that. I see that visual. I immediately have these terror nightmares, right? That night, it would be really hard for me to sleep because I don't know what it is called. I don't know if it is like this heightened empathy or what it is, but I could feel it vicariously what they would have felt when they narrated all those things. I was in that room when they were waiting, wondering whether this man's going to hit them or not, whether the kids are going to be safe tonight or not, whether the man would pay the electricity bill or not. I felt like I was with them, and that pain and that fear and that at that moment felt too real to me. Now I'm carrying all that with me, and I go to bed and I'm trying to just, get on with it because the film is over. The film's long over. But these things kind of linger on. And when the things got a bit more formalized and finally we had 18 of them who were happy to be in the film, while I was editing, it felt as though, and I'm saying this in a not in a bad way, but it felt as though the 18 women were just standing in my room where I'm working, just standing in anticipation when I'll finish the film and when they can have their stories out. It felt like the women, the 18 women, were standing right next to me, just looking at the computer screen with me. That was quite a quite a thing to break. I would every once in a while I would just jump up from the chair, like do a bit of I don't know, some push-ups or just do some jogging on the spot, just to just get the whole energy out. But when I go into the film, into their words, into their experiences, it every once in a while it feels as though the women are just here, in anticipation. And if I all these women, they just check in on me all the time. They check in on me saying things like, oh, it can't be easy dealing with abuse stories, I hope you're okay. So when they ask me that, I know in my heart that it is coming from the place of love, but it also felt like such a scary thing because I was feeling more and more responsible to do a good job in getting their story out, and that responsibility was just too overwhelming. I have broken down into tears many, many times during the process of editing. I would get overwhelmed if I see an email. The tiniest of things would trigger me. If I turn on the air conditioner and if it is not turning on at the first instance, I would cry. It was quite a funny period that I was dealing with. My own psychological ups and downs during the time. But again, like I always do, I kept visualizing the end of the race. I kept thinking about that time. I kept thinking about that time and the support that I had throughout the process. It's a good thing that I did was to post these snippets every once in a while, just so you know that I'm still at it, I'm still doing it, and I've not forgotten. These film women's stories will come out. I will do justice to them. So I keep posting these snippets. So the response that I would get from them, again from the online tow and community, would make me feel a bit less anxious. They would constantly reassure me, saying that it's you put this film out that's already going to be so amazing, and the fact that you are doing it, it's going to be even more amazing, and blah 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 and things like that. And I was just sit and cry looking at the computer screen. Obviously none of you know that, because I'm obviously not saying that I'm crying, but I would see all these comments and I would see all these replies to my tweets and snippets, and I would just sit and cry. Most of them would be happy tears. Some of them would be just really just painful, angry tears, because we shouldn't even need a film like this in the first place. Why the fuck am I sitting and making a film about these assholes who are torturing and abusing these women, and them being called stunning and brave, and me being blacklisted in my own community of filmmakers? Like, how is this even real world? So it was all sorts of roller coaster of emotions and things that I was navigating on my own. My poor baby dog Mango was listening to me rant the whole time. She's basically the one who pulled me out of this nonsense. Working her would like help me come out of it briefly, and I'll come back, feel energized, and go back into the zone again. And of course, working out and things like that. So I had to constantly keep checking in with myself. Are you okay? Are you okay? Can you do more? Can you do this chapter? Or do you want to take a break? It's okay to take a break. You don't have to feel guilty. The women in the room are just there to support you. They're not there to, force you or guilt you into doing it faster or sooner or whatever. It's okay to take a break. The women would want to take a break. In fact, some of the messages that I get, or Leslie is here. Leslie would know, Dr. Leslie Simmons. I adore her so much. She would constantly check in on me all the time. You just send messages of with filled with so much love. I'm just so grateful. And I'm also telling you that the 18 women that were there, eventually the visual turned into such a visual of pride, So I'm here, this poor little bespectacled editor sitting in front of my computer, and these bloody formidable 18 something women folding their hands and saying, "We've got this film now, assholes. What's your excuse?" That's how I turned it around.
I think back, I keep thinking about that you felt they are there with you, and you said they just wanted someone to hear them. I think that when we don't even know it for most of our lives, that we all have a story to tell that we don't think anyone will listen to. And then when you have that opportunity, to me it almost feels like when you have this shadow that's always with you of abuse in whatever form it is, it's the unwanted passenger. And I think in a way that feeling of them there with you was them being able to release that, because someone, they can't like you said, they can't take that away from them. This film
Hmm.
is forever. and
Yes.
and they got to, someone listened. Right.
Yes.
When I first came to X, there was a woman from Australia who messaged me and said, "What's your story?" No one had ever asked me that. No one had ever asked me that. And I think just being able to because then we can release some of it or part of it or all of it, depends on the woman. But I think that is something that no matter what you do in the rest of your life, you helped them release some of that. And I think that's monumental. And I think that and all of us got to see you give them voice, and that's just amazing. That's just absolutely amazing. Are you still in contact with the 18 women?
Well, I am in contact with most of them, but some of them created an email address exclusively to do this project. And as soon as the filming was done, I couldn't track them. Those email addresses were no longer valid because they just had to be sure that the ex-husband or even the husband, if they haven't left him, can't track her in any way or bring trouble in any way or dox her and take the children away, all sorts of things that the poor women have to think about. So some of the email addresses don't work anymore. In fact, I think about the 50 something women that I spoke with, not just the 18 of them that ended up being in the film. You know, I sometimes look at old emails and just smile to myself that 22, 23, early 23, maybe I'm writing this very nervous email saying, I'm this filmmaker, so and so. I got your email address from so and so. Would you please have a minute to just, have a chat with me about your experience? Knowing or rather not knowing what the response is going to be, like I would think what's the worst that can happen, she might not reply at all, or she might reply saying that that it was not okay for me to just randomly contact somebody or something like that. But then all of those fears were unfounded because the response that I had was just so overwhelmingly positive, and the women were just basically, they were just, it was like a dam broke, right? I asked them a question and they just talked and talked and talked, and that's it. And now we have the film, and I still feel like there is so much of what they want to say is still not out there yet because no film can properly bring all of these experiences together. I mean, this is just one effort that we've got this film now. I want more films to be made on this subject. That's also why I'm um, very happily posting all the individual stories as well. We now have 8 of the 18 stories out already, so that you can watch the whole story of this one woman in full. That way, if somebody can relate to a particular story and they watched her in the main film, but they couldn't see much of her in the main film, then she can watch the whole video later on YouTube. All of this is free and things. So I still feel like, despite all this, despite us campaigning for them, despite us demanding that their voices be heard and things like that, it still feels like it's not enough because it feels like the kind of injustice that goes so many years back that they would have to course correct for another 100 years and it would still not be enough.
Do, do you think, with the women that you are in contact with, do you think that this has changed them, this experience of doing the film?
Oh, yeah, of course. The women that I am in touch with, some of them I'm even happy to say have become good friends. I have met them in person. They have expressed so much joy about the fact that such a film exists, and they're so excited about being identified in events that in GC events or something where some woman would just recognize somebody and go, "Oh, weren't you in that film?" And they would joke about how they felt like a bit of a celebrity and things like that. So there are like a lot of happy things going along with all this as well. So some of the women that I'm still in touch with are very, very happy. They use it as a political tool to campaign for more rights as well. They are trying to organize screenings. They are basically, women are just amazing. I just made the film. It's women who are doing the showing and taking it to the next level, sort of a thing.
What would 2025 Vaishnavi say to 2011 Vaishnavi?
Ooh. Look how far you've come, I suppose. I don't know. I don't have any witty things to say, funnily for me. no witty things at this point, but I would just say that I sometimes it feels like a dissociation, you are who you are in the current moment, and all the other versions of you where you wished things were different for her have somehow dissociated from you and have become another person. I just constantly have this urge to give her a hug. I suppose I would give her a hug and I would say, look how far you've come.
I think she would take that hug. I think any of us would. And and part of the reason I asked you that is because it has come to the point where we have young women, we have lots of young women who are, okay, this is bullshit. No, I want it, and I want to get into the arts, whatever it may be. Or even to older women who are like, no, I'm too old, I can't try and learn something new. What would your advice be to them?
Oh, age is absolutely just a number. I used to think when I started making films that I wasted all that time doing corporate jobs and doing masters in a business degree that I wasn't even interested in doing, and I thought, oh God, I wasted nearly a decade doing absolutely nonsense. And then I thought when I started, what I started was just too late. And then now I know that's just stupid because you start when you think you're ready to start. That's it. It can be when you're 60, it can be when you're 70, it can be when you're 80. I don't even care. I tell my mom this every single day. She keeps talking about, oh, when I was a girl, blah, blah, blah. And I would say, who's stopping you from doing that today? She wanted to write, she wanted to publish a book. I encouraged her to do it. So she's got this little book where she has handwritten these thoughts that she wants to someday publish and have few people read about it and things like that. So I just I just don't think age should matter at all. I think what matters is your willingness to try and do something new without really worrying about the consequences. As in, worry about dangers, definitely, but not worry about whether it'll be good enough, whether it'll be liked by people, whether it'll have enough social media likes, particularly for younger women, whether it would be viral enough or something like that. Think about it, sis. I have made these films, right? All of you know the films that I have made, but that's mostly because we are all pretty much moving within the same circles, right? But for those outside of our feminist bubble, they don't really know about films like this unless it breaks that mold and goes past it, or some mainstream media writes about it, or something like that. So, in comparison, I would consider our films not being watched as much as it should be. But that's not stopping me from producing newer films, right? Because I already know that it's not going to be watched, because I'm not making a film for people to watch it today or for it to become viral today. I want it to be a testament. I want it to stand as a proof that we have all been screaming about it for many, many years. And you were just too stupid enough to not take notice of things. We have always said no to this thing. So it would be for, I don't know, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, when we have had some success in this fight. I would like to think that these films would stand as a proof, as some sort of a monument, an art piece, where we can look back and say, well, we've had this resistance happening from around the world, dating back so many years, and we should all feel so proud about it. That's how I see it. See, these individual stories that I post, I advertise the time that I'm going to premiere it on YouTube. I say that I will be on chat and things like that. There are just 100 things happening every day online, and I know that not everybody can attend these live events all the time. Other people might just think something else is more interesting than this. All cool, no problem at all. I sometimes have just me watching the premiere of my entire news story, but I will still be there on live chat, hoping somebody might come, or if somebody comes, I should be there. So I always show up. when I know that I'm the only one watching. That does not discourage me in any way, because next month I'm posting another story for me to watch it all over again as a premiere, just the sole person watching it as a premiere. Couple of people might come and go, but mostly it's just me, right? Some of the trans widows who are in the film are very happy to be in the live thing, because sometimes they like to chat with each other, so that's always nice. But other than that, I know that our films are not going to get the kind of traction, but you don't do this thinking about all of that, no? You do this because you do it. That's it. You have to do it.
I think one of the things that makes it hard uh, is the demonetization from, I can't say that word, from every platform, the shadow banning, the you like I on it I it's very rare that I see you come across my timeline, and we all know what's going on in the background or whatever. So I think that that's why doing things like the storyteller space is important, so that we can remember that we're shadow banned and they're limiting our reach. um and it's important that we support each other. If we have YouTube channels, and we need to go subscribe, because we have the what we need to win this, because they haven't silenced the arts. We have our orators that go and speak at live events. We have our women writing these amazing substacks, and going on television when they can, or television, showing my age here, going on podcasts or whatever, right? We have our women who create the stickers, right? All the different sticker art. That this is going to be, there's the proof that we were here, because like this is something else that we talked about. I don't want someone else telling the story of this movement in 10, 15, 20 years from a perspective of a producer in Hollywood or whatever, and the people in the movie are people who tried to silence artists, right? This is what we were talking about this. So we have all the different camps within this movement to keep the records. We have the filmmakers like yourself, right? So it's important that we always, if we can, because it takes no energy to like or repost, takes no time, you know, just support. We have to support each other, because that's how the change comes about. I don't want in 15 to 20 years the only people who see this stuff about us are people who are in the kooky memorabilia stores, right? Where they've put us back in the corner next to the people who are flat earthers or whatever. Because it's not going to happen, because we're going to win this. But bottom line is, it's up to us as women to, whatever our passion is, to go remember that everything we do as females proves that they were wrong and we're right, when it, with the sex class stuff. So, but yeah, I think, can you just talk a little bit about that struggle of trying to be seen, and the demonetization thing?
Yeah, as soon as we put the film out, I was immediately informed by YouTube that we are not qualified to to be the recipient of ad revenue of the entire film, because we had questionable content, or we had stuff that the advertisers wouldn't be interested in. I then appealed. No help, and I appealed again, no help again. And then few people that have had similar experience, I chatted with all of them, and they said unless you remove this so-called objectionable content, they are not going to flag you as okay for ad revenue receiving. So I looked into the video and saw what they were citing as questionable content were basically all the stuff that we were being critical of, like, you know, those little montage shots of these men, which we are showing as this is what your stunning and brave looks like. So there's like this montage of these really hideous looking men and whatever, that part. And then there was this one experience that this woman is sharing. Those two things had to go. Now, as a filmmaker, I wasn't willing to self-censor just because I might get a few bucks on YouTube, which is not a smart thing to do because I don't have a source of income. This is what I'm doing full time. Activism is what I'm doing full time. I don't get money on X, but I'm paying for their premium because I have to upload these videos so that it's easy to share on X. Because if it's on YouTube, that's two steps, right? You go to YouTube, like paste the link on X and then share it. But if it's on X, you just have to share it from right there. So I spend money to share my own stuff, but I also get shadow whatever band thingy on X because I'm noticing more and more that the viewership or the responses or whatever is just dwindling. And it makes sense because it happens to every once in a while to other women within this movement where they're suddenly seeing that there is like this downward spiral of followers not being visible or their tweets not being visible and things like that. All of those things are happening to me as well. The only irritating part is some of them are able to make ad revenue, and that's why they're upset or worried, anxious that X algorithm is doing something to their timeline. I don't make any ad revenue, so I'm not even sure what I'm fighting here. Same for YouTube. The other videos that I post barely gets like few hundred views or something like that. So for that kind of viewership, you hardly make any money. So I'm not even thinking about the ad revenue on YouTube anyway. If it comes, I haven't even checked it. I don't even know what it is up to right now because if I look at it, it depresses me because it'll be like a few rupees and I don't want to see it, so I don't. But all said and done, it is difficult to get your art across in a time where the things that we are trying to bring to light are being heavily censored, and the fear that looms around projects like ours is that well, if we let this film out, few people might watch it and might see sense in what this filmmaker is trying to say. So we have to stop that from happening. Therefore, I'm just not even going to let this film be visible to other people. Only then do I have to worry about whether they see it and have a change of mind, right? Let me just stop before they even get to see it, then I really don't have to worry about it. Keep people stupid, keep people ignorant. That's what they want. Unless if they don't do it, there is no trans ideology. Trans ideology relies on the entire world dancing to the tune of this one person who wants a certain pronoun or something. If we choose to not do it, that identity collapses. So they really don't have any ground to stand on. It depends on other people's ignorance and delusions. So, our projects, our films, our substacks challenge that. They make people think about blindly supporting some movement just because it's a kind thing to do. We are not unkind people. We are just stating facts, and it's important. And they know that we are powerful, we are formidable, and we are dangerous because we will take this ideology down. That's why they don't want us to be heard. And it makes sense. So the more I get silenced and shadow banned or whatever those words are, I think I just tell myself and reassure myself that I must be doing something right. But the fact that the monetary aspect of it is also getting hit is a bit of a worry, but I am really not thinking about that and worrying too much because I just don't want to worry about it. I want to see my projects as only a source of resistance and fight and questioning and challenging and, all of that rather than think about, oh my God, another film made and I have still not made profit. I'm not thinking about that. I don't want to. That's not why I'm doing this for the past decade. So I don't want to start that. it is a thing, but um, it's how it's going to be, and I have come to terms with it.
What what are you thinking? Are you working on anything currently? You have an idea? What's going on with you as far as the documentary brain currently?
Just too many ideas, but I want to do justice to the rest of the stories. I want to get them all out because I don't want to do like a half-assed job of doing this half-heartedly and already thinking about a new project. I think it won't be. I won't do justice to the story, so I want to get the stories out as quickly as possible. But in the meantime, I'm thinking of a lot of ideas, might even persuade other women to do it because like dysphoric happened, it's about trans-identified young girls. And then behind the looking glass was women affected by trans-identified women. And the puzzle piece, the trilogy that is left to be made are the mothers that are affected by this ideology, right? So I do know that there is this gaping void in talking about the mothers, ROGD mothers, or just mothers overall who have been affected by this ideology. I don't know whether I'll do it or when I'll do it. So that's there. That's an idea that's just brewing. But I want to release these individual stories as well. And I have a few very, very extremely amazingly interesting fiction stories that I want to first write as stories and then turn it into a film, because I feel like if I make a fiction film, I will come back to this trauma and abuse, um, dealing with the trauma and abuse in a sort of a rejuvenated way, because being outside and doing stuff outside and putting things in a fictional manner kind of changes your perspective on things. And that kind of enables you to look at film in an objective manner. It helps you to um, dissect things in an objective manner. And I wish for that to happen for me, but that all depends on who is happy to work with this horrible, horrible transphobic bigot who is a direct descendant of Hitler. But apart from that, I'm hopeful.
Well, I think that having this conversation today was important for a lot of reasons, but I really, really love the fact that you showed us what goes into making these, where your passion came from. Do you see yourself doing this? Just going forward, you're going to make movies, or do you? Well, I know you want to write the fiction and then turn it into a movies. Do you think there's other avenues out there that you still want to explore that are kind of floating around?
I want to make films, even if I do dabble on other things like writing and things which I have been doing parallelly anyway. But I want to make films for the rest of my life. That's what I want to do. I think I am so clear about that. I might make different kinds of films. I might experiment with different styles, but art is where I think I will be, and moving images is kind of where I feel very belonged and at home, and it goes in par with the kind of visual brain that I have and this fantastical imagery that I have of wanting the whole world to be a bloody mattress. I think I squarely align myself to that fantastical wish, and maybe make even a children's movie someday about this little girl who dreamt of having a whole world with just a mattress around so that she wouldn't bang herself against something and fall down.
Well, I think that all of us would love that. And the more stories we have that come out like that to counteract the crap, the better. Um, this has been an amazing conversation. I am so happy that you came to join us. Um, if you could give the women listening or the people listening in the room, give us your take on your hope. your hope going forward through the rest of this year and in the next few years? What's your overall hope for this community?
I think I have a lot of hope for us, for women, while I am also simultaneously shitting myself in fear of what's consuming us, what's consuming young women. But I do feel like hope somehow is much bigger because it takes it takes courage to hope, sis. Hope is not for losers. Hope is not for cowardly people. It's it takes guts to hope for something at the face of adversity of this magnitude. So I feel like to even have the tiniest amount of hope in your heart, the willingness to get up and post that blog post or finish that film or upload something online or make that tweet or question authority every day, that little deed every day that we do is a sign that there is this hope that we will win it someday, because that rage keeps us fired up, because we hope for a better day, not just for us. We might even be long gone, but a hope for a world that is not as shit as it is right now. I think hope is everything. And I'm really proud of myself for never losing it. Even in the most darkest of times in my life, and I've had so many of them, I feel immensely proud of myself to have never let go of that hope, because if not for hope, what else is there to live?
I think hope is one of the most powerful and just it's brushed aside. It's not given the levity that it should, and that's they've underestimated all of us for a while, and they're going to keep doing so, and they underestimate hope. I truly believe that.
Yeah, and they're gonna have the day of, if Kara's still listening, the day of reckoning, when we are gonna win this, and then we're gonna turn around and not make a big fuss, just join J.K. Rowling in some hill, party all night or something like that. Not no big deal, nothing fancy, just a tiny little celebration of a few women who'd cackle all night, probably drink a unspeakable amount of sweet things, and basically just think about all the times we thought we would never see this day, and just laugh even more and cry and everything. I can see it happening. I can definitely see it happening. When JK made that tweet about finding your hill, and all of us had commented saying how wonderful it'll be, I saw it. It unraveled in front of my eyes. Now, that's not something a person without hope can do. I am filled with it. I will die with it. Hope is all I've got.
it it's just been a really amazing conversation, and I hope you come back and let's talk again. I want to say this to, and Vaishnavi can back me up, I hope, on this. Don't think that you don't belong up here telling your story. Someone who's up here was surprised that I even asked them. Know your worth. Come tell your story. We'll share a link to the storytellers. We do this every 2 weeks. It's about uplifting and empowering women, and say, come tell us about your passion. What is your creativity? Is it film? Is it computers? Is it painting? Whatever. That is what this is about. And Vaishnavi, you are an amazing woman, and I think thank you greatly, greatly for joining us today. But I think you'll back me up in saying that every woman has a story to tell.
A 100% back you up with it. Every woman has to tell her story, and we have to never be shy about telling our story. We have to scream our story. It doesn't matter who's listening. We have to scream it nevertheless.
We will be back in 2 weeks for our next Red Tent Storyteller Space. I'm going to turn it over to Nat to take us out. Give us a follow here on X, and go check out Vaishnavi's work. We've linked it down in the purple pill. And what an amazing woman you are, sister. Thank you again for joining us today. And over to you, Nat.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for being with us. You're welcome, Vaishnavi. And really, it's an honor to have you come on for an hour, almost an hour and a half. It flew by. Thank you all for joining us for another Red Tent Storytellers. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Stay tuned for that. And of course, do support Vaishnavi in the work and make sure we're all still following all of each other. It's been happening again. We're just mysteriously unfollowing people. And so let's make sure we stay connected. And with that, I
Yes,
wish you all
we've
an
got to have
amazing
each
day.
other.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to talk, Vaishnavi. We'll have a meeting
Yes,
soon.
yes. We will have a meeting soon. Thank you so much, Nat. Thank you so much, Pija. Thank you, lovely women, for joining, listening to me ramble on.
All right, everyone, have a great day, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Emmy and I'll be back on Monday for American Turf Radio. Have a lovely afternoon.